Hi everybody, my name is Anne-Catherine and I'm one of the co-founders of DNA Life and Nordic Laboratories. I have today met up with the excellent scientist and biochemist Peter Köppel, who has specialized in nucleotides. And so we're going to do like a talk here really to get you an idea of how important nucleotides are in clinical settings in order to help your patients the most and the best you can. So anyway, Peter has been studying nucleotides for many, many years. As said, he's a biochemist and has a postdoc in immunology, very, very interesting and very, very relevant these days. And then he moved on to working with arthritis patients and joint health and so on, before he moved into this research in regards to nucleotides, where the main focus, of course, was in animals, before he, at least 10 years later, could move on to research in humans. But before we dig into all this, I think it's important to understand a little bit about what nucleotides are. What I normally say is that, well, nucleotides are those lines in between the DNA. You have the DNA string, and that's what you need. And you get it from heart and organ meats and so on. And we are very often deficient because we don't eat that very much. So that's kind of like the quick description to the patients. But of course, now we have a little bit of time where Peter is going to dig a little bit more into it. And hopefully later on, we will have even more time and create another educational pack where we can tell you even further more about nucleotides. So I'm just going to stop share my screen so that Peter can share his screen for the first question, where I'm gonna ask Peter what nucleotides are in a biochemist's language.
So you see, the nucleotides are the building blocks of our genetic material. And all in all, we have 5 different nucleotides, and 4 of them are specified for the DNA, and 1 is then exchanged and is then exchanged into place by the RNA. So we have, for the DNA, we have 4 different nucleotides. And as you see, we have 2 sorts of nucleotides. We have, one is purines and the other is pyrimidines. I mention this because this is very important to the composition of our products. But you see, these nucleotides, these purines, pyrimidines are then connected to a sugar and a phosphate. And they are bound to each other by a long string of always sugar, phosphate, and that gives us at the end this long chain of the DNA. And now you see the distribution of all these 4 nucleotides needs to be equal. That is very important. And the sequence of the nucleotides are always, these 3 nucleotides are always a word. So we have with these 3 words and a lot of combinations, we have a possibility to write down in the DNA the plan for the whole body.
And Peter, why is it then that we need these nucleotides as a supplement or from food?
Yeah, you see, the problem is our eating behavior, because the most of the nucleotides you found in animal parts, and in the animals, most of them are even go further down in organ meat. And you see, when you look, for example, here, I have here a picture of the composition of vegetables and fruit, and you see, we always, when we look at the purines, we see always a very high portion and a very low portion of pyrimidines, but they need to be on the same level. So our product is composed so that the number of pyrimidines is high and the number of purines is low. Now, when you see here, all the green part is the total nucleotides, and you see they are extremely low. And when you look in B, for example, here, you find much more nucleotides, but these are all organ meat.
And we don't eat very much organ meat these days.
Yeah, that is a huge problem. But also, when you look here in the next one here, if it comes, you see even let's say fish or the lean meat is also quite low in nucleotides, because the animals how they are kept today, they don't move. And the amount of nucleotides is depending on the, let's say, the performance or the activity of a cell. And in these animals, the muscle cells are extremely low use. So they are not moving out in the field. So therefore, the amount of nucleotides here is extremely low. And we need per day, for about 70 billion cells, we need nucleotides. And each cell to double the DNA need 3 billion nucleotides. So we need per day about 180 to 250 billion nucleotides.
And what is that in a product? I mean, now we are talking about the nucleotide supplement product. Is that a scoop or 2 scoops, or what is it in practical terms?
Yeah, it is. It's difficult to say, because you see in feed or in animal, also in the cell, the nucleotides are protected, and you can only absorb about 5 to 10% of these nucleotides which you have in your food. We prepare the nucleotides so that they are easily available, and we can use we can say that about 80–90% are available, can be absorbed in the body. So we need, compared to the nutrition, we need much less, but we need about, optimal would be about 2.5 grams. But that's also because we can use this small amount, because a part is produced in the body, and a part is recycled from dead cells. But again,
and what would be I mean, so 2.5 grams of nucleotides in an easily absorbable or rather easy ready form for the body? What would that be equivalent to, let's say, in animal liver? Can you remember that? Just so we know how much liver we have to eat per day.
It's about, also we have to combine both. Also we get some nucleotides from our, let's say, from our food, and liver is quite good. So you would need per day about 500 to 600 grams of liver. But a liver contains 100 times more nucleotides than an apple. So you see, the problem is mostly in vegetarians, because they do not get enough nucleotides. Okay. And the body will still work, but it will not work optimally.
And that's the thing, when we are dealing with functional medicine, we want the body to work optimally. So then it's more like an idea of like, who would we give nucleotides to? What functions would we, what symptoms would we consider our patients to use nucleotides for? Or I know you've been involved in doing research in regards to the common cold and the immune system, and also in sports and athletes, and also in relation to gut function. So should we start with the immune system?
Yeah, so let me put like that. Everybody needs nucleotides, additional nucleotides, because the nucleotides we are in short, and they always compare it with the sport car. If you have a sport car, you need, and our body is a sport car. So if you have a sport car, you cannot fill in the cheapest gasoline. I mean, the car will still run, but it will not run optimally. But we have seen the nucleotides in the body, the nucleotide production over age decreases. And the whole metabolic activity is going up very, very much under stress situation. So everybody who has stress need nucleotides, and in older age we need nucleotides. We have also seen when you have, let's say toxins in the food, you need more nucleotides. If you have a higher performance, let's say sport, you need nucleotides. And very important also for children, it's extremely important to have nucleotides, because the mother milk is really rich in nucleotides. And the cow milk, which is the basic of our milk formula, is extremely low. And in the first phase of life of a child, this is in the first half year, all these formula are supplemented with nucleotides. But the development of the organs is not finished after half a year. You have the organs, you have the brain, you have the growth of the children, and that needs a lot of nucleotides. And when you have, let's say, this, let's say, not good food, the children cannot develop their body optimally.
But it even starts before then, because I remember I asked you a question in regards to sperm quality.
That is also we have seen, yeah. Mm.
Yeah, so can you please share a little bit on that?
Also, we have done it in different animals. We could not do it in humans, but we have seen that the quality of the sperms was massively improved. This means the whole fertilization of an embryo is much better. And then the embryo development in the body needs a lot of nucleotides too.
And then you even told me that when you fed nucleotides to pigs, that they made more piglets.
Yeah. Also we have seen that the number of offspring just in this in the animal field were increased drastically.
So are we to believe that it's also safe for pregnant women and breastfeeding women to take nucleotides?
Yeah, because nucleotides are already in the food, in our food. In every food we have nucleotides. They are not optimally absorbable or available, but they are there. So nucleotides are a natural ingredients of our daily food. And what we did, we extracted the nucleotides out of yeast and purify them so that they are easily absorbed. So cannot be of harm. And because of mother milk is already rich in nucleotides, and mother milk, the composition of is so that we have about 90% purimidates and only about 10% of purines. So we try to adapt a little bit on this composition of the mother milk, of our products.
The only place I've heard you be a little bit careful with nucleotides is if a patient is on chemotherapy.
Yeah, also we have two things which we have to be careful when somebody is on the chemotherapy, because there we should not go in there, because a lot of chemotherapy are based on altered nucleotides, so that they are formed in a way that they can no more be inserted in the DNA. And therefore, the whole cell modification breaks down in the body. Now, when we come with our nucleotides, we would counteract this medication. And the other one where we have a little bit to be careful is with autoimmune diseases. We have a lot of autoimmune diseases which our product helps a lot. But we have to start small, because the body needs first, all autoimmune diseases are very often related to the gut development and gut flora. And our product has shown that we, first of all, we increased the number of bifidobacteria, and we have also seen that the villi growth is much better. So when we start with small amount, we adjust first the whole situation in the gut. And through this improvement situation in the gut, a lot of autoimmune diseases are already low. And after a certain time, we can then start to increase step by step. And we have seen quite good results in some cases. Also, for example, in Crohn's disease, we use our product quite widely.
That's very, very interesting and really nice to know. So when you start slowly, now I'm talking scoop wise, are we talking a quarter scoop per day for how long, or is it?
Yeah, just a really small, less than, let's say, less than, about a quarter of a scoop, or even less than a quarter.
Because the normal recommendation, like for when there's no concern, you can say it would be like do 1 scoop and see if you tolerate it, then up the dosage to about 4 scoops so that you can replenish, and then go down to about 2 scoops per day. And then if you're an athlete or you're doing training or exercise, you can take a scoop or 2 before and a scoop or 2 after that as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah.
Okay. So then I just wanted to share a little bit from my clinic as well in regards to the use of nucleotides. So I see a lot of women who have vaginal yeast problems, and so I had specifically one patient where she in the end said it was a nucleotide deficiency she had. So for 10 years she had thought that it was yeast she had, and it might have been, of course, as well. But once she started taking nucleotides, her yeast symptoms went away. And I have also had another woman where she had very dry mucous membranes vaginally as well. And when she started taking the nucleotides, it's just lubricated much better. So for that, normally we would use like an estrogen suppository or something, but then using the nucleotides, which was basically lacking in the body, helped ease that issue. I have had another woman who had really dry eyes, and she had to drip the eyes like 20 times a day. And within 1 month, she only was dripping her eyes once or twice a day. And then I have had, I've had a man where he was 69 at that stage, and I had given him nucleotides because there was something with his immune system and so on. So I just wanted to see if I could support him that way. And he'd had a lot of infections and so on. And then I asked, so how do you feel the nucleotides were working? And he said, well, I can't really feel it. And I said, well, then I think we should stop. And then he said, well, I don't think so, and then he laughed a little bit. And then he told me that he actually had a better erection when he was taking nucleotides. So he didn't want to stop nucleotides per se. Can you agree with those stories?
Yeah. I can even explain them, because you see mucus and all these defense mechanisms are mostly depending on the production of proteins, because all these mucus are proteins. You have the defense in the gut, you have defensins, you have IgA and so on. They are all proteins. And when you have, let's say, the whole information on the DNA, the first step needs that this small part from a gene need to make a copy in form of an RNA. And RNA is again made up by nucleotides. When here you have not enough nucleotides, this RNA building formation is slow. This means the whole production of proteins is going down. And that is where, for example, you have a better immune system, because we have seen that you have more antibody titers. We have seen in the gut that you have, let's say, the defensins and also the mucus is much better. With erection, it's a little bit, we have seen this in the animal field also, but it's very difficult to explain how it goes.
Well, it sounds good anyway. Anyway, I think the time is up. Pisa, I want to thank you for your time, and I hope this has inspired a lot of practitioners out there to try some nucleotides, if not on themselves and on their patients and family and so on, and you understand how safe it is, but you also have an idea of when to be a little bit careful. Again, as I mentioned, the starting dose can be really carefully. If it's autoimmune conditions, as Peter explained, then we're talking like a quarter scoop, and then you increase it gradually. But otherwise, a normal start would be try out a scoop, see if you're okay with it, and then increase to 4 scoops, and then go down and maintain at 2 scoops after about 7 to 10 days. I just want to warn you that there are some people who thinks it tastes horrible, myself. There's other people who can put it straight into their mouth and smile at the same time.
I also find it horrible, but this is the nature of the nucleotides. But when you as soon as you dilute it, for example, in a shake or in a smoothie or something like that, or even in a yogurt,
yeah,
the taste is fine.
We have even had some at some of our DNA Live training events who mix it into coffee. And you can put it into warm food, as I understand. It's not breaking down or anything.
They are heat stable. They are extremely heat stable. Mm-hmm.
Super. So having said that, thank you very much, Peter. And we'll be in touch. And enjoy the rest of the day, everybody. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.